morning, third graders. Today is May 12th, and I am Miss Craig-Mickel. We're back with another reading lesson. Today we're going to be working on finding details that support a main idea, so let's get to it. All right, you're going to need to have headphones. You're going to need something to write on, something to write with, and a brain that's ready to go. Remember today, if you are having a hard time staying focused, you can pause the video, take a little break midway. You can stand up and move around in the middle of the video. That's one good thing about learning at home, is that you can make a plan to make it work for you, okay? Our goal today, we're going to be able to find details that support the main idea, and we're going to explain how they support the main idea. What do they do that makes us understand the main idea more? So we've been focusing on what is the main idea, and today we're going to be focusing on what are the pieces and choices the author made when they built their paragraph to help us find the main idea. We'll know we can do it when we can determine the main idea of a paragraph by asking ourselves that question: what does this paragraph tell me about the topic? We're going to pay attention to the details and examples in a paragraph to see how they show the main idea. And then we're going to find details and examples that don't support the main idea or don't fully support the main idea. So at the end of the slide, you are going to see a bright green one that looks just like this. It's going to say your assignment. That's your clue that everything on those bright green background slides are the part that you need to turn in. Everything else that's on these backgrounds, those are the ones we're doing together to help you learn. So when you see these bright green ones, that's how you'll know it's now assignment time. That's what you'll turn in. So let's get to our lesson. Nonfiction paragraphs are all made up of details, and those details do some different things. Details might tell us more about the main idea, so they might just give us information. They might give an example that shows the main idea. They might give a fact about all or part of the main idea. So not every sentence in a paragraph supports the whole main idea. Sometimes they might just be telling us about part of the main idea. And sometimes paragraphs include information that isn't about the main idea at all, or it's not about the whole main idea. So we're going to really dig into those details today. So I want us to look at a paragraph that was in your quiz last week. So we're going to use a paragraph you already know, and we're going to start looking at the details of it. So this paragraph is called Zoos During the Coronavirus. I'll read it to you. While zoos may be closed to the public during the coronavirus pandemic, many people who work at the zoos still have a job to do. The keepers at the zoo are hard at work to make sure the animals at the zoo are fed, cared for, and safe. Many places where zoos used to order food and supplies are no longer operating, so some people at the zoo are working to locate hard-to-find food for certain animals. One zoo is growing 18 different kinds of emergency eucalyptus for their koalas. Other zookeepers are working to find places to get fresh ocean water to keep their sea creatures like octopi and stingray healthy. Other keepers make sure the animals are not bored or depressed. They are finding new ways to keep the animals entertained. Since there are no people at the zoo, keepers have taken the animals out of their enclosure to visit other exhibits. At one zoo, Hector the Patagonia got to visit the otters. At the Woodland Park Zoo, an owl named Buddy was taken to see the penguins. Even without visitors, the zookeepers have a big job to do to keep the animals healthy. So now we're going to take a look at 3 different ways that details support the main idea. So details can give an example of the main idea. And I highlighted this in blue because in here, the highlighted parts in blue give an example of this main idea. So the main idea of this passage is that while zoos are closed, zookeepers work hard to keep animals fed and entertained. So these blue ones are an example of zookeepers working hard to keep animals fed and entertained when the zoo is closed. So let's read one. Other zookeepers are working to find places to get fresh ocean water to keep their sea creatures like octopi and stingrays healthy. Well, that has to do with keeping them both fed and entertained, the water where they live in, and they need the water to eat and get their food, so healthy, while the zoos are closed. And that's important because they have to find new places to get their water. So that shows the zookeepers working hard. It's an example, and it's a specific example because it's telling us about specific creatures. This bottom one down here is another specific example. At one zoo, Hector the Patagonia, so it's specific, got to visit the otters. That's an example of keeping animals entertained. The zookeepers are working to keep them entertained. At the Woodland Park Zoo, an owl named Buddy was taken to see the penguins. That's an example of zoos being closed and zookeepers working to keep the animals entertained. So even though they don't support necessarily the fed part, they are an example that supports this main idea. Now let's look at the green one. The author also uses details that give more information about the main idea, so they explain it a little more. So our main idea is that zookeepers are working hard to keep animals fed and entertained while the zoos are closed. So let's read this. Many places where zoos used to order food and supplies are no longer operating. So some people at the zoo are working to locate hard to find food for certain animals. So they're not telling me specifically what, for example, they have to grow eucalyptus for the koalas, but they're telling me more information about the hard work that they're doing to keep the animals fed, and they're telling me more information about why that's harder now than it was before. This other fact down here, this other detail, other keepers make sure the animals are not bored or depressed. They're telling me more about how the zookeepers are working to keep animals entertained and what might happen if they didn't do that work. So they're explaining more information. They're elaborating, just like we always tell you to do in your writing. Now, this yellow part is telling facts about the main idea. So facts usually have like numbers or information that is not an opinion, that can be proven. So one zoo is growing 18 different kinds of emergency eucalyptus for their koalas. So it's a fact they're growing 18 different kinds of emergency eucalyptus. We could go to the zoo and we could count out how many different kinds they have and prove it. But it's also a fact that's telling us more about the main idea. They're showing us how they're working hard to keep the animals fed by growing those 18 different kinds of emergency eucalyptus stash. Now, sometimes things get a little murky between what's an example and what's a fact, and that's okay. What I want you to be doing is thinking about how do those details help you understand the main idea better. So usually they help you understand by giving you a specific example of something they're doing so you can get a picture in your head of what a zookeeper working hard to keep animals fed and entertained might look like. Or they might explain more. So if it was confusing about why they had to be working harder than normal, they might explain some more information so you understand it better. Or they tell you a fact so that you can understand, like, whoa, not just a little bit of eucalyptus, 18 different kinds. So let's look at another one here. This passage is called Animals Out in the Open. I'll read. As I read, think about what is the main idea of this paragraph. Park rangers at national parks around the world have been seeing more animals than usual. The park rangers believe that without human visitors, the animals feel safe to explore new areas of the park. At a national park in South Africa, lion prides have been seen napping in the middle of the road. Normally, traffic would push them into the field and bushes for safety, but with no cars, the cats have been soaking up the sun on the roads. Normally, Yosemite National Park has 308,000 visitors in April, but this year, no one but the park rangers are there. Those rangers have seen many more bears, cougars, and bobcats than usual. The population of those animals is the same size, but they have been coming out of hiding now that the park is quiet. One ranger even saw a bear exploring the visitor center, an area normally packed with visitors. We have a picture with a caption, and it says, "With no cars, lions can nap in the sun on the roads." And we can see a whole bunch of lions all napping right in the middle of the road. What a crazy sight. Take a minute to think about, what is this passage mostly about? What's the topic here? And what do we learn about that topic? I would say the topic is probably like animals at national parks or wild animals. And what do we learn about those wild animals or the animals at national parks? What are they doing and why? So I would say a good main idea is that while humans are staying home, animals at national parks are spreading out to new places or are coming out of hiding or are being seen more. So we've got our main idea, and I want you to think about this yellow piece of information here. is this an example, more information, or a fact that shows more about this main idea? I'll read it again. You think about, what does it tell you? At a national park in South Africa, lion prides have been seen napping in the middle of the road. What does that tell us about the main idea? I would say that this is an example. They're telling us about a specific type of animal at a specific national park, the lions at a national park in South Africa, and they're telling us how they're spreading out to new places. They're napping in the middle of the road now. So they're giving us an example of this main idea. Let's take a look at this next part in green. The population of the animals is the same size, but they've been coming out of hiding now that the park is quiet. Now that's not an example. They're not telling us about a specific type of animal. Here, they're giving more information about the main idea. They're saying it's not that all of a sudden there's more animals than normal, it's that the animals feel safe to come out. So they're telling us why the animals are spreading out to new places. They're giving more information. Look at this passage. Do you see a fact anywhere that tells about the main idea? Oops. All right. I want you to take a look here and think about this passage again. There's two key parts to this main idea. The first part is that humans are staying home. The second part is that animals are spreading out to new places. So when we look for something that supports the main idea, we want to have something that supports both humans staying home and animals spreading out to new places. A line that best supports the main idea should have something to do with both of those key pieces. So look at these two lines from the paragraph now. Which of these best supports? Think about those two pieces. Which one talks about humans staying home and animals spreading out? They're over here. Normally, Yosemite National Park has 308,000 visitors in April, but this year no one but park rangers are there. Does that have to do with humans staying home? Does it have to do with animals spreading out to new places? Now let's look at the next sentence. Usually, traffic would push them into the fields and bushes for safety, but with no people, the cats have been soaking up sun on the roads. Does that talk about humans staying home? Does it talk about animals spreading out to new places? Which of these is the best support for the whole main idea? It's the second one. The first one talks about how people are staying home, that there's no one in the park but rangers, but this one doesn't talk at all about the animals spreading out. It's not that it doesn't belong in the paragraph, it's a fact, but it doesn't support both pieces. So if we're looking for the one that best supports it, this bottom one talks both about with no people around and what are the cats doing? The cats have been soaking up sun on the road. It also talks about how traffic would normally push them around, but with no traffic, that also has to do with humans staying home. So this bottom one is the best support for the whole main idea. Let's look at one more together. This one's called Museum Pup. If you know me, you know I like dogs. I was pretty excited about this article. Riley may look like an ordinary puppy, but his owners hope that he may one day help protect rare artifacts in the Museum of Fine Arts. Riley isn't training to stop human intruders. Instead, Riley is learning to sniff out bugs that can destroy paintings, cloth, books, and other rare artworks. Moths can munch on delicate fabric art. Beetles burrow into wooden objects, and a bug called the silverfish can destroy books. The museum hopes Riley can stop infestations by sniffing the museum's artwork and sitting in front of art to signal when he smells bugs. This would allow experts to inspect and preserve the objects before they are damaged. Right now, Riley's still learning his job, but he will train for the next year to learn how to smell insects and show his handler where he smells them. His owner hopes that Riley's work could protect the Museum of Art, or the museum's art, from invisible intruders, bugs. We have a picture of puppy Riley, and it says, Riley protects artwork from insects that could destroy it. Well, we have to first figure out what is the main idea before we can look at the details. So this is an article mostly about Riley the puppy dog. And what do we learn about Riley the puppy dog in this article? What does Riley do and why? Hopefully you got something like this. Riley the puppy is in training to sniff out bugs that might harm artwork at a museum. So now let's look and see. Do we have anything that gives an example of a puppy training to sniff out bugs that might harm artwork? Well, the whole article is kind of an example of one dog sniffing out artwork. So I don't see a lot of examples of a puppy in training to sniff out bugs in this article right now. Let's look at the second part. Does the author give more information about the main idea? Look at here how the author tells us more. So instead of just saying sniff out bugs, he says he's learning to sniff bugs that can destroy paintings, cloth, books, and other rare artworks. So it helps us understand all the different types of things that might get bug infestations. They're giving more information and elaborating. Look at this part in blue. This is telling us facts about how bugs might harm artwork. Tells us that moths can munch on delicate fabric art, beetles can burrow in wooden objects, a bug called the silverfish can destroy books. These are facts about bugs that can harm artwork. You could also say they're giving examples of ways bugs could harm artwork. Sometimes the line between those gets murky. The point is that we can tell they both have to do with this main idea, and we can describe how they're supporting that. All right. Back to our same article, but now I want you to look at two new sentences and look for which line from the paragraph supports the whole main idea. So go back to that main idea. Riley the puppy is in training to sniff out bugs that might harm artwork at a museum. Your main idea is going to need to have something about Riley, the puppy in training, and something about sniffing out bugs that could harm artwork. Listen to the first sentence. The museum hopes Riley can stop infestations by sniffing the museum's artwork and sitting in front of art to signal when he smells bugs. Does that have to do with Riley, a puppy in training, and sniffing out bugs that harm artwork? Here's your second sentence. Moths can munch on delicate fabric art, beetles burrow into wooden objects, and a bug called the silverfish can destroy books. Does that have to do with Riley the puppy in training and sniffing out bugs that harm artwork? Hopefully you'd know. The first one, because it talks about Riley and it talks about how he's going to stop infestations by doing the sniffing and signaling when he smells bugs. So it talks about both the bugs and Riley. All right, here's our last one we're going to practice together. This is called wild beach horses. I want you to find a detail that gives a fact, an example, or more information about the main idea. Here's the main idea. The wild horses on Corolla Island are facing many challenges. So I'm giving you the main idea. I want you, as I read, to listen for a fact, an example, or more information about the wild horses on Corolla Island are facing many challenges. Listen as I read, see if you can find one. Wild beach horses. About 500 years ago, a Spanish ship got stuck in the shallow water off North Carolina's coast. Horses on the ship swam to shore on Corolla Island. Their offspring survived hurricanes and storms to continue living as wild horses on the island to this day. Now they face more challenges. Many people are visiting the island. That means there are more roads and cars, which can be dangerous. Sometimes people try to play with the horses or feed them food that can harm them. Some people are building big homes on the island, crowding the wild horses. The horses have other challenges as well. For example, the horses don't interact with horses from other areas. This means they only mate with their own herd. This can cause genetic problems in their foals. Last year, a foal was born with many broken places in its legs. The wild horses of Corolla Island face many challenges to their survival. We have a picture of a horse, and the caption says, "The horses on Corolla Island have adapted to eat seagrass." And you can see the horses eating seagrass. So go back and look at this paragraph again. Do you see any facts in here about the wild horses facing many challenges? Do you see any examples of the challenges they might be facing? Do you see any places where they give more information about the many challenges they face? Or the wild horses on Corolla Island? All right, now I want you to think about what you just read. Which of these three details best or does not support the main idea? So which of these does not have to do with the wild horses on Corolla Island facing many challenges? The horses on Corolla Island have adapted to eat seagrass. Sometimes people try to play with the horses or feed them food that can harm them. This can cause genetic problems in their foals. Which line doesn't show that they are facing challenges? Well, if we look, the first one actually shows how they've overcome a challenge, right? It shows that they've adapted to eat the seagrass and they're doing fine eating the seagrass. So that's not a challenge for them. People playing with them and feeding them food that can harm them, that's a challenge. Genetic problems in their foals, that's a challenge. All right, it's time for your assignment. There's going to be 3 questions. Make sure to answer all of them and submit them to your teacher. If you are Moldenauer, Holmstrom, or Craig-Mickel, you'll submit them in your Dojo portfolio assignment. Heinz and Johansson, you are going to share them in your Google Docs. Your assignment's going to look like this: the date, and then 1, 2, 3 for your work. First one, it's called a molasses disaster. Question 1 says, which detail gives more information about the main idea that, so I'm giving you the main idea, the molasses flood was a disaster for the city of Boston? Read the paragraph and then write the letter of your answer. Pause if you need more time. Question 2. Which detail gives an example of the main idea that monuments on the National Mall honor important people in our country's history? The paragraph is called "The National Mall Honoring the Great." You have 4 choices. Write the letter of the choice you choose. Pause to give yourself time to read. And question 3 says, which detail is not related to the main idea that monuments on the National Mall honor important people in our country's history? It's the same paragraph. Now you are looking for a detail not related to the main idea. Again, you'll choose A, B, C, or D. Pause the video to give yourself as much time as you need. Thanks for sticking with me today all the way through to the end, you guys. Great work.